All right, let's go ahead and get started. Everyone, if I haven't met you already, my name is Carly. I am our events and community partnerships lead here at Learnit. And with me, leading us in conversation, I have Nathan Kluge from Foundation Fighting Blindness, and also Jonathan Rekental and Moafik Sadawi, our partners at Menlo College. So we are thrilled to be here with you for this special event on the Fourth Industrial Revolution's Insights for Success. This event is based on a full-length workshop with Jonathan and Menlo College. So we're really thrilled to have Jonathan here leading us in discussion and to be partnering with Menlo College. If you're new to these Friday events and to Learnit, we want to give you a little bit of context around who we are, what this program is all about. Learnit is a learning and development organization based out of San Francisco, but we also have a team that's nationwide and working remotely. And really our goal is to help you learn the skills to thrive in the workplace and the economy of today, and also stay relevant and prepared in top of mind skills as the world continues to change and we enter this new era of work. So this event and this week's event is part of a weekly community event series. We host these events with a monthly theme in mind. Our month for November is all around driving impact. And these sessions, as usual, are led by subject matter experts, our internal experts, as well as guest speakers like Jonathan. And 100% of donations for these events this month go to the Foundation Fighting Blindness. And with that, I want to hand it over to Nathan to share a little bit about Foundation Fighting Blindness and the incredible work and research they do. Hi, Nathan.
Hey, Carly, thank you so much. It's been great to partner with you guys over the last month, and we've been still grateful to partner again through November to raise awareness for blinding diseases. 50 years ago this month, the foundation was organized to drive research that will provide preventions, treatments, and cures for people affected by diseases like retinitis pigmentosa, age-related macular degeneration, Usher syndrome, and the entire spectrum of retinal degenerative diseases. And as we celebrate the 50th year of the foundation, we know that we are heading towards a finish line for finding treatments and cures for so many blinding retinal diseases, but we aren't there yet. We're at a critical point in our history where, with more advancements on the horizon, we're really going to see this win and be an end in sight. The question is no longer if we will win, but how fast we will win. And for the first time in history, vision loss is being treated and even cured. But these important breakthroughs would stop without research funded by the Foundation Fighting Blindness, which is why you being here today is critical for us to spread our mission and awareness and have you guys know about our foundation. So you're helping us finish a job, and we are truly grateful for your ongoing support and really, really grateful to partner with Learnit in this community throughout the last couple of months. So back to you, Carly.
Thank you so much, Nathan. And everyone, there'll be more details after the session on ways you can donate and contribute to Foundation Fighting Blindness, and also volunteer if you're interested. It's an incredible organization, and just have really enjoyed working with Nathan and his team. So with that, I want to introduce all of you to Jonathan. Jonathan is a best-selling author. He's a global speaker, and really a thought leader in the area of technology and software engineering, as well as just the global economy and how cities develop. So he is the founder of Human Future, which is a global business and technology advisory, investment, and education firm. He's also an academic and an adjunct professor in the School of Management at USF and at Menlo College. I also want to call out Moafik Sadawi, who's been an incredible partner for us in the partnership with Menlo College, who's with us here as well today. And Jonathan has been recognized and named as one of the top 100 CIOs in the world, in various accolades from various organizations. And his previous roles include Senior Software Engineering Manager, Director of Technology, and CIO for some of the world's leading organizations. And again, he holds several degrees, but which also includes a PhD in information systems. So we're in extremely good hands this morning with Jonathan. Jonathan, I want to hand it over to you, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you very much, Carly. That guy sounds really interesting. I'd like to meet him. But seriously, thank you so much. What a great honor to be here. Thanks, Carly, for all your work in putting this together. And of course, to Dean Sadawi, who's on too from Menlo College. two great organizations, and it's wonderful to be part of them both. And thanks to all of you. Wow, we got a great attendance here on a Friday. You've decided, some of you, to spend your lunchtime with me, and others different times of the day, to learn about a pretty spectacular topic. So I commend you all for making the time to learn about the times in which we live and the opportunities ahead, and getting prepared for that, right? Getting prepared for what looks to all of us and is shaping up to be quite the period of disruption. So I want to spend a little bit of time with you, giving you a little tease into this rather large space. And hopefully it inspires you, intrigues you, and helps you a little bit in your life's journey. Now, what I want to do is, as we jump deep into the topic here, I want to kind of frame a question for you to think about over the next 40 minutes that we spend together, right? So this is not something that necessarily is abstract, that you can observe from a distance. The topic we're talking about today is deeply personal to all of us, you, your family, your friends, and your organization, and to your career, of course. What will the future bring? What opportunities will it present for you, in your life? So I want you to think of that question as I kind of proceed through the content today, and we'll come back to that question towards the end. Now, I find that a great way to help people understand the times in which we live and the places we'll go together is by looking back. Unintuitively, let's look back to look forward. I think this is really helpful. We need a context. We need to understand, why on earth do we have a fourth industrial revolution? Why do I believe that? Why should you believe it? And so I think history helps guide that, the answer to that question. Humans, we think of being around on the earth, Homo sapiens, for somewhere in the 200 to 300,000 years. And for a lot of that time, nothing much happened, right? We were hunters and gatherers, and for a whole variety of reasons, that started to change, but only started to change in the sort of 10 to 20,000 years ago in a very significant way. Lots of debate on why that happened. We have some good understanding, but we're learning more all the time. But as we then progressed from the sort of 10,000 year time horizon where we started to settle and have organized societies, we fast forward to about 700 years ago, when things really started to change in a very big way. Okay, so we went thousands of years with little change to suddenly having great change. And there are many moments which cumulatively start this great period of change, of course. But I want to take us just to Florence in Italy. I want to take us on a little journey, right? If you get a chance, put it on your bucket list to get there. Go to Florence. What a great place in Italy, beautiful place. And back in the 1300s, there's a lot of really fascinating things happening. It's a successful little city. It's a intersection of trading routes in the world. And by the way, people are coming from all parts of the world and meeting up in Florence, and they're exchanging ideas. And people are learning about all sorts of cool things happening in Asia and over in different parts of Europe and Africa and other areas. And we're starting to document this stuff. We have the starting of what we now know as knowledge management. So we're starting to document things, critically think about where we're headed. Coincidentally, the Renaissance, this period of time, as it's known, is just after there's a massive pandemic which kills, sadly, a lot of people. So, these great thinkers in Florence are thinking to themselves, wait a minute, that pandemic, that catastrophe, we can't have that happen again. What can we do differently? And this sort of mindset helped with the progress of science. And of course, after this has lasted for a few hundred years, leading to the science revolution and the age of enlightenment. But if we fast forward again to the 1700s, I want to take you to Britain. I want to take you to the United Kingdom in about 1750, and something big happens, right? You can look through history and, there's long periods of not a lot happening, and then suddenly something happens which changes the game. So we go now to the UK, some of the big industrial centers, or the emerging industrial centers, like London and Birmingham and Manchester in the UK. And we see something. We see the emergence of steam, right? The emergence of steam. Think about the world before steam. How did things happen, or how do things move? Well, largely humans used to pull and push things, and we'd use animals for that, and we'd have windmills, and there was some water power, of course, but steam changed the game for combustion, for helping us create more power that would help build more complicated machines, to build different types of products and add more value into the production supply chain. And then you have things like the locomotive, the train emerges, allowing people to travel over long distances, including not only people, but products, which changed the landscape and changed things like trade. During that first industrial revolution, which was in the 1750s, we also had the emergence of new materials like steel. So we could build again machines and bridges and all sorts of new things with new materials. Already we'd seen people moving in from the rural world to these urban settings, but the first industrial revolution kicked it off and made it accelerate in considerable ways. Now we fast forward another 100 years, and we are now in the 1850s, and we see the emergence of humans leveraging nature for the purposes of driving electricity. We take it for granted today, but up until the early 1800s, most people in the world did not have any access to this remarkable new power. Now, what's fascinating as you think about going through the first industrial revolution to the second industrial revolution is how different the worlds were. If you lived prior to the first, the world was different after the first. If you lived prior to the second industrial revolution, the world was different on the other side of the second industrial revolution. That's why they are of scale and impact that we call them revolutions. Electricity accelerated urbanization, more people again moving into cities, accelerated the growth of factories and mass production. It also brought into play things like telecommunications, right? Imagine how magical that must have seemed when we first started sending messages over wires. Well, remember, up until that point, we used to use horses for moving information around the place, right? And runners. And now we could move information across continents, almost at the speed of light. So this was significantly game-changing. And weirdly, it is yet another 100 years later that we find ourselves in the 1950s. Look, I don't know if anyone's done any work on this, but it's really interesting that these revolutions almost happened by clockwork every 100 years, at least until now, when in fact we've changed that. So what happens in the 1950s? Well, let me take you to October 4th, 1957. I want to take you to Moscow in Russia, which is part at the time of the Soviet Union. So come with me to the Soviet Union into the 1950s. What did that feel like? What kind of world was it in the 1950s? Well, it's kind of sad because at the end of World War II in 1945, both the United States and the USSR, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, those Eastern European and Russian countries, we won World War II together. And then sadly, after World War II, we became bitter enemies. History and what happens sometimes is cruel and unexpected. And there wasn't a physical war between these great powers, but there certainly was a Cold War. And the tensions were high. Now, the USA and USSR did fight, but fought through smaller countries, through proxy countries. So technically, the world's physical and Cold Wars operating during that period. And in 1957, October 4th, just a month ago, something very interesting happened in the Soviet Union. They launched this thing on the screen. This is, and you're all shouting at the screen right now, this is Sputnik. Yeah, this is the first practical satellite launched from the USSR into the sky, and it went up into space and passed over and made many revolutions around the world, including passing over the United States. Now, if you think about the world of 1957, to see what was happening in another country, we had to have spies, right? Or we had planes that that risk obviously being shot out of the sky, which sometimes happened. And so suddenly the game has changed. Russia has unfettered access to the US mainland, can see our airports and our factories and our homes. And this put chills through the US government at the time. And we said, we got to have also satellites peering into the Soviet Union. And lots of money poured into the Washington, D.C. area, and lots of money poured into the West Coast, where I am right now. Now, the West Coast of the United States, here around this Northern California area, lots of work had been done on radar and communications equipment relative to protecting the West Coast from a potential Japanese invasion during World War II, which luckily on the mainland never happened. So there was already great electronics and research being done here. And money flowed into Stanford University and all the different electronics agencies. And we had some breakthroughs. By the way, that money flowing out and the response to Sputnik created NASA. The NASA we know and love today, right? The rocket program, a direct result of the Cold War, right? Well, what happened in 1957 and beyond was the miniaturization of electronics, because we felt we had to create this really new context for technology to sort of meet the Russians head on, but also to beat them. We had to miniaturize that technology, and we pioneered this notion of the transistor. All the electronic engineering students and graduates watching today know this symbol is the transistor. It's a on and off switch. It's a very tiny on and off switch for controlling the flow of electricity. And it's by using this and leveraging this at great miniature scale that we come up with a microchip. Because what is a microchip after all? It's a container for today billions of these little switches, these transistors, right? And that is the computing platform of the third industrial revolution. So to recap, it's Sputnik and the Cold War between the USA and the Soviet Union that really launches now a third industrial revolution, which is driven by innovation in electronics and particularly the microchip that today powers so much of the world. And we don't need to give a lot of examples, because right now we're experiencing the product of all this, right? The fact that I'm on Zoom on a camera here over the internet talking to about 70 of you all around the world. We see the revolution. Now, this revolution is well underway. And what are we, if we say 1957, 1960, 40, 50, 60 years underway with this one. And it's been an amazing journey. I think you'd all agree, right? Starting, in the 60s with the getting practical, low-cost microchips meant we could have things like calculators and fax machines. And we started to see things like the mini computer and the mainframe, all the precursors to the laptops and smartphones we have today. As we went through the 80s into the 90s, we got networks when we could connect computers. Into the 90s, when the biggest thing of all happens that's affecting our lives today, the emergence of the internet, moving out of the military establishment into academia, and then into the hands of all of us, so we could innovate and create a whole new platform for value and innovation in the world. And as you go into the 2000s and you get the smartphone, and you see things like the emergence of the value of data. As we get into 2015, we see things like the emergence of artificial intelligence and augmented reality and bioengineering. And now, as you'll see later in my presentation, things like quantum computing start to emerge. Now, the connection with this chart is as our microprocessing capability has improved, in fact, doubled every year to 2 years, we have seen more and more capability, more and more innovation and value. So there is a strong linkage between the increase in performance power out of those microchips and the dropping cost and the amount and disruptive nature of innovation. So just as a summary, let's take a look at what I just shared with you. We started in the 1700s with the first industrial revolution, which is all about steam and mechanical power and factories and the use of new materials like steel. We head into a second industrial revolution that introduces electricity and the assembly line that we're more familiar with, accelerating cities and changing the nature of the human condition, right? We went from being in a largely rural environment to an increasingly urban environment. And today, having passed 2008, we are in a majority urban planet, right? Headed towards mid-century, about 70% of all humans living in a city or an urban context. We get to the third industrial revolution. It's about electronics and automation and computers. But then suddenly, here we find ourselves in the first few decades of the 20th century. We see another set of significant technological changes and macro environment characteristics that are changing the game yet again. Now, in each of the prior revolutions, they came as a surprise, right? They came as a surprise. They changed the world and people responded. There were lots of people who prospered, but sadly, a lot of people lost out. They lost out in a whole range of ways in terms of opportunity, in terms of global competitiveness. And so we progressed through these revolutions. Sometimes it was pretty tough, but for those that were able to adapt and anticipate, they often were able to prosper. Now, here we are. It's 2021. And we have evidence that we are on the precipice of yet a fourth industrial revolution. My thesis to you is, if I can tell you now, if you can understand the trends and the changes ahead now, you can better prepare yourself and, in fact, prosper. So you face a choice. Every one of us faces a choice. Do we not get informed? Do we step away and basically say, what will be, what will be? Or do we take active steps like attending this webinar, like getting new knowledge, like acquiring new skills, and then we succeed in the 21st century? That's a choice we all face. So let me start to go deep dive into some of the characteristics of what this fourth industrial revolution is and why you should care, right? These are three pretty interesting numbers to start this topic, right? If we were in a classroom now, I'd probably have a good discussion with you, but we're together on this this brief webinar. So I'll give you the answers so you can sit back and enjoy it. Well, you can maybe guess that 7.6 is the population of the Earth. That's billions, right? 7.6 billion people are on the planet right now, and that's growing. We're going to hit 8 billion soon, and it's projected that we'll probably reach about 11 billion. Around about late this century. And unintuitively, because I always thought overpopulation would be our problem, the population will start to decline and decline fast. And so the one of the challenges of the longer term future is not enough humans, right? So that's something for you to think about. What does it mean when populations decline rapidly rather than grow, right? 4.1 here, billions, represent the number of people connected to the internet, right? So we are now today a hyper-connected planet. 4.1 billion people have access to the same information, generally, with some exceptions, and can interact and connect and communicate across borders and boundaries around the world seamlessly. Now, you could say, you could look at that and, like me, I'm an optimist. I say, that's amazing. 4.1 billion people are connected to the internet. But you could also look at that number and say, well, that means 3.5 billion are not connected to the internet. So there is a big chunk of the planet that does not have connectivity still. So I see that as a challenge for us. The good news story is that we are connecting people more and more rapidly and adding hundreds of thousands of people to the internet every few days. So those numbers should get bigger. The 5.1 here, the final number, are the amount of, drumroll, the amount of cell phone users in the world, or mobile phone users in the world. And surprisingly, it's bigger than the amount of people connected to the internet. There's a couple of reasons for that. First, There are other networking technologies beyond TCP/IP, the stuff that runs the internet, so people can connect and send messages on other networks. They're not part of the internet as we know it. And secondly, a lot of people have more than one device, right? So they have more than one cell phone. But the important thing about this number is that we are hyper connected, and we are a mobile connected human global population today. More people use mobile devices than any other type of device for communicating and collaborating across the world. The interesting thing about this topic of hyperconnectivity, I've been focusing on people, and there is an upper limit to the amount of people we can connect. Well, the upper limit is the amount of people in the world, right? So technically, we'll never be able to connect more than 11 billion if 11 billion is the cap on the amount of humans that will be around at any point in time. However, the same does not apply to connecting things, connecting objects like our refrigerators and our doorbells and our sound systems, and connecting our homes and our factories and our machines in our factories, and connecting our cars, and keeping connecting things at a rapid pace. So there is no cap on that, right? Today we believe, if you look at the chart here, we've connected about 35 billion things. Sometimes I think that's maybe conservative, but it's a good bet based on the analysis. And but just look what happens over the next 4 years. Between today, 35 billion, and by 2025, we think there will be 75 billion connected things in the world. That's over double the amount of things that are connected today. And what do I see when I see this chart? Well, first of all, primarily I see innovation. I mean, what can we do when we are growing at a rate, this fast, and we're putting this amount of connected devices into our environment? By the way, just some quick math will get you there. Like if 4 years we're going to add 40 billion, right? That's 10 billion devices per year. Divide that by 365, and you can see how fast every day we're putting connected devices on the internet. So first of all, I see innovation. Secondly, I see opportunity. I see careers, right? I see careers in data science and in engineering and in startups and a whole range of work around project management, and much more diverse in terms of communicating differently, visual storytelling and data storytelling, and networking, right? So this creates a huge pull on new skills and the expansion of existing skills over the next, what's going to be several decades of innovation. It also means, finally, that we're headed towards a time when if something can be connected, it will be connected. And that fundamentally will change the nature of the human experience and the world. I cannot overstate for a second the role of the Internet of Things in the fourth industrial revolution, and why that ultimately will be a game changer. These things, right, in the course of doing their work, they are capturing data, they're manipulating data, they're producing new results. So there's been a phenomenal growth just in the growth of data from IoT, never mind data growth from other aspects of our world. This number is very revealing. Here you go, we're going from about 0.1 zettabytes, no less, zettabytes. Today we have we're creating 4.4 zettabytes of data from IoT devices. Now, for many of you, just the term zettabyte might be new, right? This is what we're calling the zettabyte era, right? And to give you a sense of how big one zettabyte is, that's one with 21 zeros after it. So it's another way of saying that's a very big number. That's a lot of data. And a lot of that is what we call dark data. It means we don't know what to do with it. It's sort of the byproduct. But you know what's in that data? In that data is knowledge and insight. It's telling us about the world in ways that we can't yet process our understanding of the world. And so we need new technologies, and we need new talent to be able to tap into this vast new world of data. And we will see for the foreseeable future many more opportunities for data scientists and people in the data space than we are churning out talent to meet. So that's a great career too. We'll see this data at volume, and a whole lot of variety, but also at speed. We're producing it at speed. And by the way, these three terms, volume, variety, and velocity, we call that, we have a really complicated name for that in technology. Really, you can stick with me on this. Big data. We call this big data. Not exactly the most original term, but that's what we call it. Now let's shift gears and sort of get into sort of the industrial side of the fourth industrial revolution. Here you can see what appears to be this is your how we all think about a automated factory becoming increasingly popular in how we create products at scale and at high quality. But there's a lot of things to see here. First of all, there are not many people in this picture, and not many people. By the way, a little game. For a long time, I thought there were just two people. And if you look at this picture, I think you'll find those two people pretty fast because it's fairly obvious. But indeed, there are two more people. My students found two more humans in this picture over the last few months. So there's actually 4 humans in this picture. The other 2 are very difficult to find. So if you want to take a snapshot right now of this page, you can spend time later or over the weekend trying to find the 4 people in this picture. But let me tell you a few things about this manufacturing. First of all, this is running 24 hours a day. So, it's almost as if raw materials come in one end of this manufacturing plant and a finished car is being spit out on the other side. And that means this manufacturing line is making millions of dollars every hour. If this production line stops, the money stops, right? And so you don't want this to stop. You want it to keep working. Now, what will stop it is some maintenance issue. Something will break. And so what we want to do is we want to be able to anticipate what breaks. And if we can anticipate it, we can fix it before it breaks. Now, if something breaks and we don't know about it, it could be down for 5 hours, it could be down for 2 days. But if we anticipate a breakage and we stop it and go in and fix that thing, we can do that quickly and get this thing running again. That's what we call predictive maintenance. And we use a whole new set of new sensors and artificial intelligence and really cool algorithms to be able to make predictions based on observing, millions and billions of interactions along this production line. So we're changing the nature of our ability to maintain quality, 24/7. The second thing I just want to say about this picture for you is that when something does break or there is predictive maintenance, it's not humans who do it, it's the robots. The robots fix themselves. These are self-healing robots, again, making the role of humans in this particular context less valuable in a number of areas. That is not to say the value of humans is not required here. In fact, the value of humans is elevated, but in different areas, right? In different areas. This is what we call part of the nature of Industry 4.0, which is the the pure manufacturing part of this fourth industrial revolution. Now, not only are we mass producing through higher quality automation and assembly lines, but we're also creating what's called mass personalization, right? So we're able to build a really high quality one unit at a time. I like this picture because I love the space program. I love space. So let me take you up to the International Space Station. So come with me right now. We'll jump on there and we'll meet this astronaut, and it could be a cosmonaut, by the way, but he's a human. We'll meet this human being who's in space, and he's holding a part. Right now, if you're in the International Space Station, there's lots of spare parts, right? Of course, because just in case something goes wrong. Well, what you can't have is a spare part for everything. So often when something breaks, it's less critical. They're waiting for a supply ship to come up and get that part to them, right? And, hopefully it's not an urgent thing, right? But wouldn't it be great just to produce the part you need on board the International Space Station? What would happen if we had a little machine, a manufacturing device that was able to high quality produce a single part? And that's what we're doing now on the International Space Station. We're experimenting with something called 3D printing, or in the industrial sector, in Industry 4.0, we call additive manufacturing, right? This ability to manufacture single items at top-notch quality. Now, my view is when we go to the moon and we go to Mars, we'll probably send additive manufacturing machines up first, with some raw materials, and we'll actually print the parts we need at least somewhere along the line as we develop out those areas. Now, staying in the context of the fourth of the industry 4.0, let's look at another aspect of an industrial context. And here you see some, the basement of some industrial facility, and these potentially look like compressors. I'm not exactly what they are, but I think they're pushing air, for a whole range of applications. But here at the front, look at the front of the image, and you see here is a digital rendering of another compressor, and what we're seeing here actually is we're using high performance computing. We're using artificial intelligence. We're using also sensors to be able to put in place a virtual machine and test it as if we built it. So this is what we call a digital twin. It is a digital replica of the physical thing. And so we are able to run this machine and measure all its characteristics before even a single piece of the machine is ever purchased or built. Now, we've been doing work like this for a while, but we're able to do it in a much more detailed and real-time fashion today because of, again, high-performance computing, better networking, better visualization software, and many of the emergent technologies of the 21st century. We're starting to see the use of digital twins for entire operations. Here you see, for example, General Electric has solutions for creating a digital twin of a hospital, right? So we're able to create this entirely functional hospital in a digital way before we ever build it. It also means when we build it, we can also simulate conditions, for example, when there would be an emergency or maybe a natural disaster, and see how well the hospital is able to respond. The city of Singapore has built a digital twin of the entire city, allowing city leaders to be able to identify issues, to be able to monitor traffic, to look at construction, to look at power usage, and have a whole new lens by which to see and operate their cities. And so the emergence of digital twins is rapidly growing in manufacturing and in healthcare, but also in our cities. This new lens is a completely new set of capabilities for the 21st century. Now, there are four major characteristics I want to kind of just share with you here for the fourth industrial revolution that are different from prior revolutions. And we're talking about scope, impact, and velocity. And I'll have one more in just a moment to share with you. There's just four. So as an example, what is scope? Well, when I was starting off in tech about 30 years ago, although I can't believe it, it's 30 years ago, I used to install software in floppy disks. And I put those disks into individual computers, and it took a long time to install software and upgrade systems. Today, when we deploy software, we do it over air, right? A lot of the time. And for example, Apple or Google, when they're distributing their operating system, it goes out to hundreds of millions of people. And in fact, over the course of a few days, it goes out to billions of people around the planet. A new version of iOS, the operating system for an Apple mobile device, can be deployed to 1 billion people in just a few days. We have never had scope like that. But that also means not only does that deliver a new value into the hands of people around the world, that's significantly impactful because from one day to the next, you have a new capability on your phone or your tablet or laptop, but also means that we can deploy problems, right? So when a bad piece of software gets deployed, of course, that's problematic because it goes on millions and potentially 1 billion devices. We got to go and fix that. It also means when we change a line of code here in Silicon Valley, the lives of people can be impacted around the world if that line of code actually affects them adversely. And we're doing this at phenomenal speed, right? We're introducing these new capabilities at a rate, at a velocity it's unprecedented. How fast? Well, let's play a little game here. If you want to have fun with me here, go ahead and be part of this. You'll use the chat for this little game. I'm going to share with you 5 different areas of technologies that were introduced to the world, and I want you to guess how long in years it took for 50 million people to experience each of these. Okay, so the question I have for you is, How long did it take for 50 million people to experience commercial air flight? Okay, I got it right. Okay, so if you want to play the game, just go ahead and type it in there to the chat. I see Diego says, "Hey Diego, I see 20 years. I see 10 years from Ouija. AP is 25. Casey says 7 years. Okay, good. 40 years from Philip White. Thank you, sir. Okay, anybody else want to guess? Another guess there? Okay. Let's move. We'll find out now. Let's get the answer. The answer is 64 years for 50 million people, right? Maybe surprising. I don't think anybody had anything close to 60. Oh, 70. Nathan had 75 years. Okay, very good. So Nathan had exactly the right idea. So surprising, right? Let's try another one. Telephone. The plain old telephone system, POTS. And how long did it take for 50 million people to make a telephone call on a landline telephone? How long do you think it took for 50 million people? Diego says 25 years. I think, are all your answers going to be 25? I'm just kidding. Rita says 20. Casey says 100 years. Wendy says 30 years. Joe says 50. AP says 45. Well, Joe is right. With 50 years. It took 50 years. Well done. Good. Spot on. Very good. Let's try a few more. This is fun. Okay, mobile phones. Mobile phones. How long did it take for 50 million people to own a mobile phone? 50 million people. What do you think? We got Nathan says 12. That's a good guess. Diego says, guess what? Okay. Lars says 3. Very good. Lisa says 10. Diego, it's not 25 years. The answer is 12 years. Well done to, I saw the right answer here. Nathan got a spot on. Well done again. 12 years. Excellent. Somebody might be Googling this, so I'll just assume that you guys are all well behaved. You're not actually looking up the answers. Of course you can. I'm just kidding. WeChat. How long did it take for 50 million people to use WeChat? WeChat is like WhatsApp, but in China. And by the way, if you get to go to China, it runs the country. It's an incredible app. People do everything on it. We got Diego's got 2, not 25. Okay. 1 year says there's Philip says 3 years. Joe says 3 years. Okay, keep going. Queen says 6. Do they have a choice? Okay, interesting. I get you. Latanya says 6 months. Well, the answer is 1 year. It took 1 year for 50 million people. So that's quite the journey from 64 years for airlines to 1 year to WeChat. Now you get the principle of what we're doing here. Obviously the context is a little different. Well, let's do the final one with the and have everyone chime in here. How long did it take for 50 million people to download and use Pokemon Go, the very, very popular augmented reality game? Lars says 1 week. AP says, Rita says 6 months. One more guess. Linda says 6 months. Okay, you guys got the gist of things. The answer is 3 days. Okay, good. Is actually 19 days. 19 days. Pretty spectacular, right? Wouldn't you agree? 19 days. Again, these are just indicative of the acceleration of adoption of new technology. So, for the first time, we have the ability to bring to market new products and services that can reach millions of people in days. We have no historical precedent for this. This is a different time, right? Here in Silicon Valley, we kind of joke around when you make a pitch for a startup. The investors want to know, when are you going to make $1 billion? How quickly? and sometimes that's followed up with when do you reach 1 billion customers? So these are questions we couldn't ask just a few years ago. In the fourth industrial revolution, these are the questions we are now asking. It is a disruptor to the marketplace. It also means, by the way, that if you are a major player, a disruptor might be creeping up behind you and you don't see it, and it overtakes you and destroys your business. So it is part of the dynamic of this fourth industrial revolution. Finally, I really just want to talk, the final one of the four is convergence. And in many ways, I'd love to spend a lot of time with you on this, but I'll give you just a little insight into it. Is as we think about technology and the changes that are happening in industry, it's easy for us to look at things individually. So we might say, for good reason, artificial intelligence is an important topic, and we could all agree on that. But I will say to you, let's add a business context to that. Let's say artificial intelligence plus healthcare. Okay, that's now getting into a more interesting question. So if you were to visualize artificial intelligence plus healthcare equals, what might be the equals? Right? What might you see on that? You might see better patient outcomes, maybe, or quicker diagnosis, right? Well, what I would propose to you is begin to think about what is on the left side of that equation. What other technologies can you put into the mix? So let's take AI plus robotics plus data plus healthcare equals. That gets a lot more interesting all of a sudden. And as an example, why did Uber emerge 12 years ago? So why did Uber? I mean, well, because it was the result of convergence. To have Uber, which wasn't necessarily a new idea, but had needed certain tech to be at a certain level of maturity, you had things like people had mobile phones, you have GPS, social computing, artificial intelligence, cloud-based payment systems. All these things were on the left side, plus transportation equals a reinvention of transportation, of personal transportation. You get Uber, right? So convergence becomes a very important way and tool for thinking about the times in which we live. Now, the ultimate context for all of this is our urban environment, right? Now, I'm very passionate, of course, about cities. Many of you know that that's my thing these days. I've written a couple of books already on it, and I speak a lot about the future of our communities. There's a reason for that, right? The future belongs to cities. And if we're going to have any chance of increasing the quality of life for more people on the planet and actually save the planet, we're going to do it in cities. So they're pretty important places. You'll see things like the adoption of the Internet of Things in our urban context, providing us with better information, for example, around public transport, or being able to tell us things about the quality of air, or improving transportation, like congestion, or maybe monitoring the weather, or detecting potentials for fires. So we're starting to see IoT, this technology we spoke about earlier, be implemented in an urban environment. By the way, today in 2021, cities are the biggest users of IoT technology. About 21% of all IoT implementations are for city uses. I couldn't really wrap up today without saying a few quick things about just a few quick topics here. The first thing is we cannot think about the fourth industrial revolution without thinking about the future of cars. I want to talk to you at length about our future of autonomous vehicles, a world in which humans don't drive cars. And whilst that'll be cool for like, hey, I don't have to worry about driving from place to place, what I do want to tell you is a fully autonomous world will change the world. And I want to share that with you at another time. We are at the beginning of an energy revolution that actually is a very good news story. And I'd love to get into the weeds with you about why going from a sort of a carbon world to a non-carbon world not only will have some challenges for us, but will also present these phenomenal opportunities in our urban environment, also in our careers. There is again a vast amount of new opportunity which the energy revolution is presenting, of which solar, by the way, solar will be dominant in just a few years. Today it's wind, but solar, as you can see, is going to be playing a very big part and will be the lowest cost unit of power everywhere. Now, the final thing I want to say as I wrap up here and pass you back to Carly, who I see has come on again, is what does it look like as we go out even a little further beyond, let's say, a decade and more? Well, if I can take you back to one of the first things that I showed you today, which is the processing power over the last 40, 50 years, or actually 60 years here. The line has been upward. It's been pretty impressive that we went from calculators to smartphones, in just a few decades, that we went from zero connected to, 4 billion people connected in the world. This has been largely powered by the microprocessor, the miniaturization of the microprocessor, increasing performance power and reducing costs. But we do reach an upper limit here eventually. Now we're going to squeeze this a lot for the next few years, but we need a new computing platform. The human appetite for new technology and new performance has no let up in the next 100 years. In fact, our appetite increases. We need a new computing stack, and we're on the precipice of quantum computing, a completely new type of computing that has nothing to do with classical computing, the very computers that we are using right now. Here you see an example of what a quantum computer looks like. And somebody, by the way, a student asked me this. I'd never come up before. He says, how big is that? Because you look at this and you might know, is this a test tube? Or is this the size of a bus, right? Well, this particular one, it's about the size, think of a Mini Cooper, a small car, right? So this is like imagine a small car just hanging from a ceiling about the size of a Mini Cooper. That's about how big this is. This, by the way, offers a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity because we're going to have to refresh a lot of the classical computing infrastructure in the world with quantum computing. And if I could kind of get you again excited and inspired by this, some people might think, well, how much faster can this be versus the computer I have right now, or my fast new, iPhone or Android phone? But you might say, well, it's going to be, is it 5 times faster, maybe 100 times faster? Now, I'll caveat my answer here with one thing. Quantum computing today, or as far as we understand, will not be something that will make everything faster. It's not necessarily software or computing that's going to make games go faster or downloads go faster. Potentially yes, but this is not where we focus. We focus on things like optimization problems. And we're not talking about 100, 1,000 times faster. Potentially in the next few years, quantum computing will be 1 million times faster, 1 million times faster than computing today. And that will change the world. Couple that with artificial intelligence, and you have a completely new world. Now, the fourth industrial revolution, unfortunately, will roll out during a time of great climatic change. We are in a period of a climate emergency, as you all well know. I think we all now are on board with the scientific consensus. So this will mean that there will be not only incredible career opportunities in a related field, sustainability, environmental fields, and everything else that's related to it, but it means we need to operate our businesses in a world where we have to have a greater focus on the environment and our footprint, and also on our behaviors and way we consume things and the things we consume. So the entire fourth industrial revolution is set in the context of a climate change crisis. So again, I come back to the question I asked everybody at the beginning. When you think about just a little bit of what I've shared with you today, how might that change and impact your life, your friends, your family, your organization, and the career choices that you're going to make in the years ahead? I'm very accessible if you want to chat some more. And with that, I wanted to say a big thank you. And I'm going to pass you back to Carly. I think we have time for a couple of questions and a few more things. But again, it's been my honor to be part of this program today. And I hope to talk to many of you again soon.
Jonathan, thank you so much. This was really an insightful conversation. Definitely got the wheels turning. Everyone, if you enjoyed today's session, give us a little reaction in the chat, maybe a little thumbs up. For me, I'm using the surprised emoji because there's just a lot of big picture thinking that you don't necessarily do every day. So I really want to say thank you to you for that. We do have a couple of questions. Before we dive into that, I'm going to show a quick video from our sponsor, Foundation Fighting Blindness, that gives a little bit more context around their work. And we'll close out with a couple of ways you can also dive deeper with Foundation Fighting Blindness and also with Menlo College and with Jonathan. So stick around with us for just a moment. I'm going to share my screen. Alrighty.
Between business life, social life, and her best bud Loki, Beverly has a lot to focus on, especially while fighting Stargardt, a blinding retinal disease that starts during childhood and gets worse over time. But despite her vision loss, she's hopeful because she knows she's not fighting alone. For 50 years, the Foundation Fighting Blindness has funded research into treatments and cures for blinding diseases, providing real hope to those fighting vision loss. And our nationwide community of local chapters provides networking and support for people with vision loss, as well as their loved ones. Because the best way to fight against blinding diseases is to fight together. And for Beverly, winning the fight means focusing on what's closest to her. The Foundation Fighting Blindness. Together, we're winning. Learn more about how you can help us end blinding diseases at fightingblindness.org.
Awesome. And a couple of ways that all of you can dive deeper with us. Jonathan is leading a very special program for us here at Learnit and with Menlo College. I'm going to put the link to that course here in the chat. I'll also be sending more details on this, but the dates for this full-length course on the fourth industrial revolution are on December 2nd, 9th, and the 16th. There will be a professional certificate of completion, and there'll be options to stay connected with Jonathan and the network at Menlo College through a follow-up discussion come the new year in 2022. And as always, we'll keep the conversation going in our Learnit community offsite, which you can all join. It's completely free to join. I'll put the link to join there in the chat, or you can also use the QR code here on the screen as well. But with that, I want to turn it over just to Menlo, or excuse me, Moafaq and Jonathan. I have a few questions to queue, but before that, any other thoughts or things around the workshop that you, the course that you want to share with the audience here today?
That's for me, yeah.
Yeah, Jonathan, yes.
No, I'm thrilled to do it. Two great partners, Learnit and Menlo College. We'll go deep. We'll go deep into these topics. If anything inspired you, you'll have a chance to do work outside of class and really get develop some real skills and tools to move forward with. And I believe these will set you up and your organization to be better prepared for the disruption ahead. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, so I put the link to that in the chat if you want to learn a little bit more. We do have a couple minutes, so I'll go ahead and share a couple questions that I pulled from the chat. If anyone else who's on, if you do have a question, you can use the raise your hand, and we can also call on you that way and bring you off mute. But I thought this was interesting, a question from Wida. Hi, Wida. She asked, why are we referring to this era as the Industrial Revolution versus the technological revolution? Since it seems so tech heavy, is there a reason for that?
No, I think that's a fair question, actually. Look, a lot of stuff is happening on the industrial side. So we do need to recognize that computing performance, that the industrial IoT, that networking, computer science, computer engineering, all of these things are very much dominating and changing the nature of how we produce goods and services. I should throw into the mix there robotics as too. Robotics is a very big one. So, it's not totally out of place that it would be the industrial and revolution. I think it's a convenient title, to be honest with you, because we have also moved from a first, second, and third. So this keeps us thinking in the context of change and revolutionary change on the planet about how we live, how we work, how we play. You'll hear people talk about a fifth industrial revolution. I have pushed back and said, hey, hang on. Let's. We're not quite there yet. We've got a lot to learn and to do to confront this fourth. So I think there's a mix of truth to the topic, but there's also the convenience of the title. So as I say, even with the title Smart Cities, often people confront me about that, is what I really focus on are the outcomes. What are we talking about rather than the title itself? I don't get too caught up in that.
That makes sense. Thanks, Jonathan. Another question or kind of a comment from Stephanie, our friend at Colby. Stephanie, good to see you. She just said, as someone who worked in manufacturing, I love the thought of going from preventative maintenance to predictive maintenance. I was kind of thinking in that light of, a lot of us in our day-to-day work sometimes feel like we're putting out fires, or we're just trying to prevent bad things from happening, or we're kind of in that cycle. I'm just thinking in light of this conversation and kind of being more future thinking and predictive thinking. Do you have one or two tips for people that might be in a leadership position at their organization to start kind of think more thoughtfully with the future in mind? I'm just thinking in your work, are there any tips you have around thinking more forward thinking versus getting stuck in putting out fires?
Well, it's a great question, also a big one. Let me do some quick tips here. The first thing is everybody can do a better job of understanding and managing their data. Can you think of an organization that doesn't have data? Well, it doesn't exist, right? Every organization collects and manages and uses data in some way, or creates it, right? So I think the smarter you get about how you govern your data, how you leverage it, how you get insights from it, how you use it to guide your decision making and decide on new products, I think that's a near-term, easily accessible way of helping with decision making now and into the future. The second one that I would suggest, and this is a bit bigger, is within your organization, subject to capacity, you've got to have some time set aside, or even some talent to do that kind of what we call almost like radar work. Is what are the threats that affect your business? And it's not enough to sort of say, well, it could affect us in 20 years. Things are moving at a rapid pace right now. What are the disruptions that could be just right behind you or about to emerge that could throw your business way off? And so that requires real skills and real thought, and you got to put aside time for that. Summarizing it, moving from being reactive to the reality and being proactive to the reality.
Awesome. Thank you. I think that's huge and takes a lot of discipline. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time and your time, Jonathan. Thank you so much for being here with us and this audience. I'll be sharing some ways to stay engaged with Jonathan. He's on LinkedIn and all the social channels, and also would love to have you all join us for the course. So we'll be sending out links to that. Thank you to Mawfik for helping us organize this, and to everyone here, but we'll see you soon. Have a wonderful Friday and weekend.